Hello and welcome to the 50th edition of New Directors, New Films, presented by Film at Lincoln Center and the Museum of Modern Art. My name is Madeline Whittle. I am a member of the programming team at Film at Lincoln Center and with my colleague Brittany Shaw at MoMA, co-programmer of the shorts programs in this year's edition of New Directors, New Films. I'm really happy to be with you today virtually with the filmmakers from Shorts Program 2, one of the two programs of shorts films that are featured in this year's festival. And we'll get started in just a moment, but I just want to say a quick thanks to all of our supporters at Film at Lincoln Center and MoMA and the audiences who support this festival year in, year out. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much for your support. So to kick us off, I'd like everybody to just introduce yourselves. I think if you say your name and the title of the film that you're presenting in Shorts Program 2, and maybe just mention where you are in the world and a word about what you've been up to at this moment in time, this strange sort of transitional moment in time. Just to kick us off. So we can start with Damien.
Hi, my name is Damian, Damian Kocur. I'm from Poland. I'm the director of the movie Beyond Is Today. Yeah, as I said, I'm originally from Poland, but exactly now I'm sitting on Canary Islands, so it's just short vacation.
Excellent. Fernando?
Hello, my name is Fernando. I am presenting now Summits and Ashes, and I am from Lima, Peru.
Thank you. Denise?
Hi, I am Denise. I'm the director of the short film Nha Mila, and I am in Lisbon.
And Austin?
Hi, my name is Austin. I'm the writer and director of the short film named Bing, and I'm currently in Hanoi, Vietnam.
And Saulė.
Hi, my name is Saulė Bliuvaitė. I'm presenting a documentary short, Limousine, and I'm currently in Vilnius. It's a very sunny day today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. I'm really happy that we were able to bring together all 5 filmmakers from this program. It's a really incredible assortment of films, and I'm excited to hear what you all have to say to deepen our appreciation. To get started, I just want to talk a little bit about the program and what my co-programmer Brittany and I saw as sort of a unifying thread among these films. We were really interested in how each of your films deals with ideas of belonging and community. They're across different modes and genres and narrative forms. Each of your films sort of takes an interest in the forces that hold people together and that maybe create challenges and opportunities from entering into a new community of peers and people and neighbors. And so I just using that as sort of a jumping off point, I wonder if you could each talk a little bit about sort of the genesis of your films. We have documentaries, fiction films, and some films that sort of straddle categories in really interesting ways. So I wonder if we could just start off with, let's start at the end and the end of the group and work back. So Saulė, could you talk a bit about your film Limousine and how you sort of embedded in the communities, these groups of peers and friends and individuals who come together within this limousine driving through the city of Vilnius? Is it in Vilnius?
Yes, yes.
How did you find these groups and how did you become involved with them?
Well, every group had a different way of coming into this film. Some people we just filmed who are regularly order limousines to have fun. Some people I found it in various daytime clubs for example, a senior club who, all the older ladies get together and think of something to do in daytime or in the evening. So they were thrilled to ride the limousine, and it was around the Christmas time. So we just went from one Christmas tree to another. And so, yeah, they had fun. Actually, I started to think about these communities from the point of stages of people's lives. So there happened to be children, and then teenagers, and then older people. And I thought a lot about time, actually, and about how at the particular time of your life you have some kind of problems to solve, or something that seems so important to you at the time, but when it passes, when you look back at it, it looks just so funny. And when you remember something, for example, I don't know, your classmate having a better cell phone than yours, or or everyone getting the flu shot when you're older and you don't get it because you're not 65 yet. So yeah, those communities came to the film as I was thinking about different stages of life. So
did the film is shot in a way that almost sort of casts the camera itself and the subjective point of view as a character, as a participant, as sort of a silent rider along with these individuals. And I wonder if you could just talk a bit about how you sort of gained the trust of your subjects so that they could be sort of coaxed into being their true selves for the camera with this sort of addition of this technology within this sort of intimate space.
Yeah, it was very hard to get intimate in general because we had only 1 hour with every group of people, and we didn't know them prior to the shooting. So actually it was kind of impossible to get closer to them prior to the filming. And so they just went inside the limousine, and so they saw the cameraman there. They knew that he will be there. But I don't know, maybe it was kind of easy because of the character of the cinematographer. He's a very inviting person. I don't know how to explain this, but I think it played a huge part into this film, and it had a great impact on all the people that we shot, because they felt comfortable around him somehow. And I think he just had this energy, and yeah, I think it's great. And it was really important that the person who was sitting with the camera would have this inviting energy, and that he made people to feel comfortable.
I have similar questions for Fernando, whose film is also a documentary that is also involves a kind of embedding within a group of people who are engaged in an activity. And I wonder if you could just go into a little bit of detail about how you found your subjects and what the process of sort of your involvement with them was like.
Yeah, I think I am definitely shy. That I find quite difficult to engage or to approach with people. And also, I think in that matter, I don't consider myself like a good storyteller. I feel like there is a lot of information now regarding one unique scheme of going somewhere, talking about what you know or what haven't you been lived at least. But I think it's more because I've been living. I moved to the south part of the Andes about almost 10 years ago, and I have been somehow I grow there. And more than the relationship with the people, I think it's more like a trigger of what happened to me about these social differences, about these impossible geographies. And I was a little bit inspired by that. How to say, I was, these social differences make me some kind of frustrated a little bit. And it was exactly the trigger that I wanted to make first photos as much as I could, especially photos of the places that the Incas used to venerate thousands, hundreds of years ago, especially in the night. But also at the same time, I wanted to take photos of ourselves, of humans, with our sins and our decays, and how even in this way we are able to try to express, or how are we able to communicate with the gods, for example. So in that matter, it's like a little bit, I try to represent myself like that.
I'm interested in how the film sort of brings together ethnographic realism and a real sort of careful attention to the actions and behaviors and way of speaking and way of moving of these individuals, while also sort of leaning into abstraction and sort of stylized distortions of images and really not always intuitive juxtapositions of sound and image. It's a really lyrical work and almost experimental as much as it is a documentary. And I wonder if you could just talk about that approach, your sort of generic approach, your genre approach.
Yeah, I think it all came in the process of editing, because first, my first approach into the video format was last year in my last trip to the Andes with my partner, who helped me pick up all the vast majority of the sounds. And it was a very intuitive work, because at the beginning, I didn't know that I was going to make a short film. So yeah, also neither of us, neither of me or my partner knew how to use a tape recorder or a Tascam or something like that. So that's why a lot of audio sections are so saturated, and in other parts are so low, have a lot of low decibels. No, so I think that's at least for me, it's very interesting, because that's also a way to not to represent, but to have a feel of a more grounded journey, or I don't know, genuine, organic, but also it's how we are ourselves with a lot of imperfections. And in the process of editing, I just started to make some kind of little script, but I feel like it was very intuitive. I mean, also for me, it was kind of difficult to use the software and the stuff, but I am, from the beginning, I was sure, I have very clear what I wanted to express, at least, no, which is this kind of ritual, for example. No? It's this kind of, with the music or the sounds, I wanted to express how to witness a ritual, especially in this case, blood-related rituals, that, and the idea that these rituals cannot be witnessed by everyone, and only can be witnessed or fully witnessed by the person who makes the sacrifice, staining their hands with a lot of violence in sometimes. No? So yeah, that's a little bit that was a little bit the idea.
I think the idea of ritual as a sort of means of bringing people together is also sort of, I think the idea of ritual comes up in several of these films. There's in Limousine, there's sort of an element of the ritualistic in these groups coming together to move through the city in this enclosed space. And I think also in Osten's film, Bin, there is less emphasis on ritual and more on, through the setting of the film, that's, you know, the narrative follows an extraterrestrial being who we're to understand, I think, has come to Earth seeking help for some unspecified crisis happening on his home planet. And what he discovers is humans occupying and moving among these temples and on the ground. And Osten, I wonder if you could talk about the setting of your film around these buildings that serve a very particular ritualistic function.
Thank you for the question. And first of all, I would like to express my honor to be included in such a diverse and exciting group of films and filmmakers. And like Maddie said, all the films talk about the feel of belonging, but interestingly, you only realize that you belong somewhere, or you have to belong somewhere once you're on the move, or on you in the midst of migration. And I feel like all the films deal with such topic. Everyone is on the move, everyone is externally or internally, and I feel like looking at the group of the films, it re-emphasizes again that being able to adhere to social distancing regulations this time is such a privilege for all of us. Regarding the question, I was in the States for 6 years, and without going back to visit at all. And since I was 18 and after college, after working in New York for a while, I came back, and the country transformed in such a speedy pace that I couldn't recognize my home country anymore. It's been observing a economic booming, and that followed by physical transformation of the city and the country itself. My own family moved into an apartment building for the first time, and further away from the city center. And I grew up with trees and riding bicycle around, and now the whole city is a totally different place. And that's where the idea of having the protagonist as an alien going back to a place that looks like his own country or home, but he doesn't realize the place anymore. It's not the same anymore. And the location that you saw in the film itself is a real location that took 10 years to replanning and move all their locals to a different place. And it was enabled by power and money to have a big temple, and they strive to be the biggest temple of the world for the sake of religious tourism, I'd say. And it was very interesting to me because after when the communism took over, all the action of rituals or celebration of rituals were prohibited from the 50s to the end of 70s, and towards the end of 80s, it was when they reopened the borders to the world. People doing businesses, and they need a belief system to rely on to know that they can do good business, they can pray for good future of their businesses, and all the action of rituals just come back very strong. And now economy and religion kind of became one. And it is such a big symbol of where we are and how we spend money once we suddenly have so much money at once.
Could you talk a bit about your approach to narrative genre? It's on paper, your film sounds like a sort of a science fiction premise, and the way that story is presented is it's not presented as a typical science fiction narrative. You know, the film itself is doing interesting things with that category, and I wonder if you could just talk about your decision to tell this story in that framing.
Sure. Yes, of course. The protagonist is an alien, but I wasn't looking into sci-fi genre or forms of the genre to abide at all. I actually wanted to make the film feels more like a folkloric story, with the story of economy and with the nature and the religion, because I felt like folklore is it's not a genre, but it's such a formal representation that resonates with me myself, because I grew up with a lot of folklores, and seeing how mysterious concepts like religion, Buddhism, or ghost calling become such blunt or involved so much with money. It's kind of a way to go back to the core of it that I feel the most familiar with. So, and I feel like sci-fi has its own genre and its forms, of course, but there are many ways that we can represent our image of future, or the communication between future and present, by using something that we used to, that sort of traditional.
I think of, I'm thinking about Damian's film about Beyond is the Day, which also sort of brings together some very real world, very present issues, if you will, the questions of the migrant situation in Europe and currents of migration, but frames those broader topics within a sort of fable or parable kind of a story with that's both very sort of stark in its telling, but also very humorous and sort of gentle in its intimacy of showing these two characters encountering one another. And so I wonder, Damian, if you could talk about how you went from the topic to the story and the presentation and sort of the mode in which you're telling it.
The first idea was to make a movie about an immigrant meeting, like, sorry for my English in advance, who meets a Polish guy living somewhere in the countryside. So where the situation where the immigration crisis is some kind looking in our eyes, like directly, not through television and media, but very directly. And then during the documentation, I just realized that the people I'm encountering, they are people which are, most of them, they are very lonely and living in some kind of solitary. So that was the immigration crisis was the first idea, and then the idea developed during the shooting process as well. So, but you know, the political and historical context is also something I cannot omit, because I like 2 years ago, the Hungarian government changed the law. That one who's the people helping the immigrants can even go to jail, can be sentenced to jail. And I realized at the moment that it reminds me on the German occupied law during the Second World War, when the Jewish people were hiding, and there were Polish people, not only Polish people, but also Polish people were sentenced to death for helping Jews. So I just realized that the history is repeating somehow, and that's why I've chosen the black and white photography to build some kind of link between the history and nowadays. All the setup, the set design is also some kind of mix between present and the past. So I was trying to mix these two worlds somehow.
Could you talk a bit about your cast? I think your two lead actors are both just have incredible screen presence and personality, and I wonder if you could talk about finding them and bringing them together.
The main character, Pavel, is my friend. He's a friend of mine, and I met him a couple of years ago. And I'm working only with non-professionals. So, but when I met him, I just realized that he has some kind of being that is very interested for the camera. You just put the camera on his face, and so many stories are going through his mimic and his face. And so I used him, so to say. He's not working in a ferry originally because he's a farmer. And the second character, the Mohammed, I was just looking for some people in Arab restaurants in Warsaw, going from one to another, and I found Mohammed in one of these restaurants. And the stories they are telling to each other, they like real stories. So Mohammed is originally from Palestine, being shot by Israel's army. Pavel is also a solitary man. He's not working on a ferry, as I said, but all other stories he's telling Mohammed, they are like his true stories. So this is kind of mixture between fiction and documentary, some kind.
That did you find that the meaning came out in the process of editing when you were taking these real stories of these real people and crafting them into sort of a fictional form? Were you surprised in the editing process as to what emerged?
Actually, no. I just had the very clear idea what I'm looking for, but the script was very simple. It was like 3 or 4 pages. I'm not writing a dialogues or things like that. I'm just writing down the overall idea. And then I'm observing the world. I'm observing the relations which are coming up in the film process, film shooting, and most of the dialogues between them are like just improvised. So all this vocabularies, mixture and failures that they are coming up because of just accidentally. I never wrote them down before. But what's interesting for me, because now I'm preparing my full-length feature film, and I will be working in a similar way. I'm not writing the dialogues. I'm just observing the relationships between people in the shot, in the frame, and then I'm trying to build something up from their presence somehow. Yeah.
I think about Beyond is the Day in connection with Nha Mila in for a number of different reasons. I think they're in some ways parallel stories about immigrant characters in transit. In the case of Beyond is the Day, the character is in transit on his way to meet up with his family in a new home, in a new country, whereas in Nha Mila, the character is returning to her hometown to visit a sick relative. But while she's in transit, she happens upon a woman from the same town and sort of has this moment of communion while she is in transition on returning. And so, Denise, I wonder if you could just talk about your decision to situate your film at that moment of transition from the new home to the old home, happening to meet someone who came from the same place that the character did.
I myself, I was born in Lisbon, but I grew up in Switzerland, and I traveled to Cabo Verde not many times, but each time at the airport, I noticed these Cape Verdean people waiting for, during the stopover, waiting for the plane to go to Cabo Verde. And when we travel, sometimes we spend many hours in the airport. So sometimes the stopovers can last 4 hours, 6 hours. And I remember even as a kid watching these people and seeing a lot of almost trapped emotion. And you can see clearly who was traveling for holidays. Some people were dressed in black. So you guess that maybe they were traveling because someone had died. And so as the character of the film, Mila, for me, Lisbon was still a stopover place. And when I came back as a full adult here, I decided to live here, I found out what exists when you leave the airport. And I had no idea about the Lisbon that it's also Cape Verdean, as almost some Cape Verdeans say that Lisbon is another island of Cape Verde. And therefore, for the character of this film, I thought I tried to put myself in the character's shoes and imagine her doing the travel directly from, we don't know where she comes from, but we assume it's Europe, directly to Cabo Verde. Maybe it's too much. And maybe she needs this stopover in Lisbon and knows that she belongs in this city, not just, she doesn't belong to the airport, she's not comfortable there. But yes, the theme of belonging is important in my short. And it was important for me to show that sometimes you belong in ways that are not, that are surprising.
Could you talk also about casting and how you identify these actresses who again are very indelible in their presence on screen?
So before writing the short film, I had decided that I wanted first to meet several women in Lisbon, Cape Verdean women, and then try to understand what is the story. But I tried for several months and that was a little bit complicated. So I decided, okay, I will write a story and then see if I meet the right people. And at the end, I was able to find very easily, actually, the actors. They are not professional actors to be part of the short film. And as many times I think happens when you work with non-actors, there is always something they personally have in common with the character that they play. And when I work with them to prepare the film, it was very important for me to almost they needed to feel extremely connected with the character that they want to play. They played, but it was quite easy because they felt a lot of empathy with the character that they played at the end. And so my work to prepare the actresses was based on their personal experiences, the experience of the character, and I merged these together.
I appreciate all of this. I already feel like I'm discerning new connections between these films. And I one connection that I wanted to ask about is that three of the films in this group, Summits and Ashes, Bean, and Beyond is the Day, are all either entirely in black and white or in black and white with a very selective, very particular use of color. And I wonder if the three of you could just talk about the choices that led you to telling your story in this format, in this use of color.
Should I start?
Sure.
Yeah, as I said, like just the black and white choice was like made in terms of like being in a like building the link between past and present. It was not an aesthetical choice only, but I like personally the black and white photography. I finished the cinematography, so I was the DOP in this project as well. So it was a big pleasure to photograph this story in black and white, especially this world, which is like, you know, it's hard to find places like that in Poland nowadays. Yeah, and we have, you know, this beautiful, very short tradition, but very famous Polish movies like Ida and Cold War, which evoke the black and white and you know, the specific framing as well. I just decided to make it like 16:9, not to make like the very like too close reference to Ida, for example. But I really like this way of shooting. Yeah, so in my case, it was just it wasn't an aesthetical choice. It was more narrative choice. Yeah.
For me, it's rather a technical choice because I started the film with the two actors, the boy and the medium, but having no idea what the film is going to be like or what the story is going to be like, and decided to shoot documentary footage of the construction for a year with the two actors because I really want them to work with me. And we just go back and forth between our city and the construction for a year to shoot different scenes of the construction. And because of that, we shot with different cameras. And at the end, when we shot the after we have the canvas of the documentary footage, now we have this fictional segment on top of it, and we could get some funding, so we decided to shoot with a more professional camera. And at the end, in order to merge all the footage together, going black and white seemed to be a smart choice, I guess. But in a way, it kind of added to that folkloric feeling that I mentioned before, and becomes more like a timeless feel as well. Especially it's about an alien with an unspecific time zone coming to Earth as well. And the magenta hue that I added on different sequences, just to differentiate the dream sequences, I'd say, and kind of break through that kind of system belief of the audience that it's going to be just black and white. And yeah.
In my case, I feel that black and white is some type of synesthetic container. Sometimes the sound explodes and the rhythm changes and the light change its forms, but allowing us to decide which of these kind of memories we want to emphasize more. So I think that's why black and white have the possibility to activate the intuition, to complete the information with one's own. And in the case of the color, I think this is like a union between, I mean, metaphorically, of course, between humans versus nature or vice versa, becoming like an exchange of information, but in time, not so much like in space.
And since we're talking about photography, Saulė, you mentioned your collaboration with your DP, your cinematographer, and I wonder if you could just go into a little more detail about that, because I gather from your answers that you were not in the back of the limousine with your cinematographer while the scenes were unfolding. So how did you navigate that sort of proxy situation where you were not present in the physical space with him?
Yeah, we thought that it would be too much for us too to be inside, because there were a lot of passengers and almost every time we shot. So sometimes I would sit next to the driver in the front seat, but it's well, the passengers couldn't see us because we were detached by this screen. Yeah, so it was well, at first when we started shooting, it was very hard to communicate with the inside of the limousine. Sometimes I would just go in the separate car and try to catch the signal with the wireless monitor. But I think that the more we shot, the more I was connected with the cinematographer as well. I mean, he started to just I don't know, get into the mood of what I was trying to achieve. So he had the walkie-talkie with the earphone, but I started using it less and less because it was distracting him. You know, someone just talking into your ear, and while the music is blasting inside the car, and people yelling one on top of each other. So yeah, somehow we got I don't know, he just went into this mood, and yeah, we shot a lot of hours. I think I had 16 hours of footage, because, you know, we shot like 16 groups of people, 1 hour, and we were filming everything. And sometimes we had a second camera shooting from the front of shooting next to the driver, from the passenger seat in front. So we had a lot of footage. And yeah, the film was born in the editing room because it was very, very hard to choose what is going to be into the final cut of this film.
I'm curious, as we have a few more minutes left to talk, if you could all just talk a bit about how your work has been different in the last year, and you know, both from the perspective of your art and your filmmaking, but also from the perspective of showing these films that we've just watched in virtual festivals and you know, and different ways of seeing your film through the eyes of an audience during this strange time. So it's a broad question, but I'm just curious to hear what this pandemic era has meant for you all.
I had to postpone my full-length feature film from last year to this year. I mean, postpone is the proper word for that? Yeah. So I think it's for everybody. It was like a very difficult year because nobody knew what will happen, and it was hard from the psychological perspective also to plan anything, to work on anything, because I personally didn't know what will happen, and if I can realize my script, if I can shoot it. So in my opinion, like writing is just like it's literature, it's not a filmmaking. So it was a very difficult time for all the filmmakers, I think, because that was the time you could concentrate to write a script, to prepare a new project. But in my case, writing the script is like maybe 15% of the whole work. So I'm doing it very fast. I'm writing the script for like a couple of days. I don't need any like more time. So the rest time I'm using like being on the set, and that wasn't possible. So hopefully that will change in a couple of months. I hope so, at least.
Well, I would say at first I didn't like it at all. I didn't expect to go to festival and show my film online, singing like a baby. But actually, I did go to screenings of my own film and other films too, and I feel bad for other film as well. Sometimes because of the wide internet connection that I myself have, and I don't know about the connection that depending on the place, because in Vietnam sometimes it's not great for the internet, personally. But then I got into new directors and new films, and I feel like my friends from West Coast can also see it online. My friends from other places that are not in New York can see it online, and I feel like it's such a great way to reconnect with people in a different way. And I'm hopeful that all the technicality or technical difficulties that we have will get better, and the industry will prove its own existence and its own way to be relived and be reasonable and relevant, and we can keep making films and showing it to the world.
Well, at least some of our audience will have seen each of your films in the Walter Reed Theater in our theatrical setting. So we're really, as much as we wish that you could all be with us in person, which we do, it's really a shame that we can't welcome you all to New York this month. But at the very least, your films will be seen on the big screen by New York audiences, and so we're really very excited about that. So I guess that's about all the time we have, so we can wrap it up here. But thank you all so much again for your films and for joining us today for this Q&A. And best of luck with your next projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Stay healthy.
Yes, everyone stay well.
Bye.